What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Montana Method podcast. One more time, as always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author of Montana Method. Today, I have an awesome episode for you. My good friend, Mastermind Rich, on the show with us. He was courteous enough to show me some love, some hospitality, bring me on his show a couple months ago. That's probably one of the best podcast interviews I've ever had, and I've done a lot. So he's the host of Attractive Mindset Podcast. We're going to get into everything he's up to, all about his podcast, what he does, his services, everything he offers in the marketplace. So stay tuned.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.
Moneybag Rich, also known as Mastermind Rich. We here at the Montana Method. Appreciate you for the invite, man.
Good to have you on, brother. How's life? You just got back from, what was it,
Podfest?
Podfest.
Yeah.
In Orlando.
Yeah.
How was it?
Podfest was a vibe. Podfest was eye-opening because you saw people that aren't in the limelight, which, you know, most people are trying to go for. Oh, I need these viral moments. I need this. I need that. But these people were more based off of just consistency. They've been doing it for a long time before podcasting was even known as podcasting.
Right.
So, you know, learning from some of the real OGs in podcasting and bigger companies like Buzzsprout, Libsyn, you know, even the manufacturers for how to set up certain podcasting equipment to, you know, do your benefit. It was good.
I like that. I like that a lot. You know what? That reminds me of, like, man, today the knowledge, there's like people willing to give you the knowledge nowadays.
Literally.
You don't even have to go out of your way to really necessarily learn a trade or learn a craft. Nowadays, they're literally just like, yo, take it here, you know? And if you're willing to invest some money in yourself, then you can get some serious game, as we like to refer to it, you know? So we're in the era of the information age for real. We've that industrial age has been dead, and now it's like information at the tip of your fingers. You got YouTube University. Anything you can possibly think of, you can look up on YouTube and learn how to do it.
Literally.
I learned how to edit videos on YouTube. I learned everything on YouTube. There's very little I can't, at least in podcasting, there's very little I can say where I had like a mentor. I learned almost everything on YouTube. I think it's so funny how people are like, man, you know, how'd you learn all that? Like they expect me to, I went to Hogwarts School of Podcasting. You know?
Facts. I'm in the house of Gryffindor podcast. Yeah. No, it's not. It's, you know, YouTube is such a collaborative platform where people underestimate the value of information because it's free.
100%.
Literally, like people were like, oh, YouTube? Like, yeah, YouTube. You have actual professionals on YouTube giving you game. And because, you know, and that brings on the concept of, do people value free information versus paying for it? And so, you know, there'll be some people that say, oh, well, why do you charge for this? And why is your price so high? And it's like, yeah, when I did a free program, nobody wanted to join because they didn't value it as much.
Exactly.
But when I started charging crazy for it, immensely, nothing changed in the program, but people started using it.
100%. Yeah, who is it? Grant Cardone that says, if you don't pay, you don't pay attention. And let me tell you, it's true, because you don't value what's given to you. You never value what you had to earn. You value.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You had to pay for that spot. That's 99% of people aren't balling, right? So it's hard-earned money you're spending. You're investing in yourself. So you're gonna, at least the idea behind that is you're gonna invest your time, pay attention, take notes.
Now, to add to that though, last year, and it had happened before, but at a smaller rate. But last year it happened at such a rate that I was like, there's people like this that exist. Somebody paid for my one-on-one coaching, which is about $15,000, and I met them one time. I met them one time.
And they were like, can I record you?
I met
The
them
attitude is
one
different.
time. No. I mean, like, that's it. It was supposed to be continual meetups.
Right.
They only met me one time, and then they disappeared. They were like, "Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, can we reschedule? Oh, can we do this? Can we do
Sure,
that?"
it's your money, not mine.
I said, "Hey, whatever you want to do, let me know when you want." And then it would go like 3-4 months without talking. I'm like, "Hey, you good, bro?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." I was like, "Hey, I just want you to know, like, this is I'm reaching out, and I was trying to create like a what's it called? I was trying to create like a text thread, so
Right.
in case he just stole my money or anything, like, no, bro, I reached out to you like a million times, and you just weren't there for it.
That's pretty crazy, though. That's pretty crazy. Some people don't even value money, though.
They don't.
That's another class of person. Some people, it's like no matter what they do, they'll never, like, whether someone invests in them, they invest in themselves, whatever it is. Because I've been to Tony Robbins, I've been to, you name it, Patrick Bet-David, I've been to all those events. And there's people who get nothing out of it. And
Literally.
You're like, man.
They go for the excitement of it.
Just to take a picture and say, oh, yeah, I was at the vault or whatever, or I was at Unleash the Power Within. But a friend of mine, there's a saying, I think it's Socrates or one of those Greek philosophers, he says, to know and not do is the same as not knowing. Like, if you know something and you don't act on it, it's the same exact thing as if you didn't know it.
Literally.
So it's like, and I'll take it a step further. At least the person who doesn't know has the excuse of, oh, they don't know. What's your excuse?
Literally.
That's-
No execution. Lack of execution.
That's just, it's pathetic. And on the part of the people who are out there who are hungry and want to take their lives to the next level but don't have the knowledge, it's like, damn. So there's people out there who would kill to be and know what you know, and you're here doing nothing with it. You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
man, it's just, I don't know. It's a whack. Like, it's a super terrible work ethic, state of mind, like mindset. I don't get it. I could never relate to that.
That's an actual lesson that I teach. I just taught it again the other day. And in that lesson, it's, what causes change in people and why don't people change? And I start off the lesson with, what is discipline? And you'd be surprised at the answer that people give you for what discipline is. And discipline ultimately breaks down to a mindset, because you have to think of it in sections of, a homeless person is one of the most disciplined people in the world right now, because they get up and continually do these actions after facing the adversity of not only life, but the adversity of being told no several times over. And what do? They will go to the next car immediately, and so them holding up the signs, them, going car to car, doing that day after day, whether it's raining, if they're in a state where it's snowing, whether it's super hot outside in Florida, like that level of discipline. And so in psychology, there's an actual study on this. I forget the person who did it, but it was easier to train somebody that wanted to be trained, that wasn't drug induced, that was homeless, to be a top level earner in a company than it was for somebody who graduated with a college degree.
That's nuts. That's crazy. I can totally get it though, because if someone has a college degree, they come in with all these, because I'm this. Bro, you're nobody. You're nothing.
Yep.
You're coming into a new industry where you know nothing. You're the same as a homeless person.
Literally.
Difference is the homeless person is hungry.
Yeah.
Like they're no, I need this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it happen. What do you want to teach me? I'll do whatever you tell me. Versus the person with a title, the person that comes in with that entitlement mentality is like, no, I'm too good to make cold calls. I'm too good to send out cold emails. I'm too good to, man, shut up.
and even if they don't have the I'm too good mentality, just when they make the cold calls and then they face the no, that breaks them down even further.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I love successful salespeople. They have a different skin.
Literally.
Obviously, successful entrepreneurs too are within that realm, but salespeople specifically, man, when you meet a salesperson who's making 7 figures, they're a different animal, bro.
They don't care.
Like, no filter. They tell you like it is.
Yeah.
They don't have time. They understand like, man, every second I'm wasting here, like dwelling on this is another second I could have had on the phone with somebody else who could possibly buy my product.
Yep.
I love being around those kinds of people because those people get it.
Absolutely.
They get it. They just get it. It's And I wish people would really understand that we don't have time. And the only thing separating you from what you want in life is the amount of time you're spending on the wrong things.
Literally.
If you switched the amount of time you spend moping and doping about how oh my God, my lot in life and all this stuff, and stop dedicating a whole day to that, and you spend one whole day working out, writing that book you said you finally wanted to write, talking to people to get people to invest in your idea, whatever, you know who I'm talking to. If you have something in your brain that you've been trying to do for years and it's still not done, and you keep saying tomorrow and next week and all that, if you spent one day actually doing that instead of one day like complaining about not getting it done, you would get it done.
And just, you know, the overall concept of time management. You know, not a lot of people know how to manage their time
At all.
because a lot of people look at me and they look at my schedules and things when I show them, especially some of my mentees, and they're like, bro, you're managing this company, you're managing this person, you're helping us with our companies, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're over here, you're over there, you're running a podcast, multiple episodes. Last year was our first year for our podcast, and we did 70 episodes.
That's awesome, man.
You know, in our first year. And so they're like, how are you balancing all of this? And I was like, well, you have to look at it as a human. We only all, no matter how great I am or not great I am, everybody only has 24 hours in a day. And so with only having 24 hours in a day, choosing how to maximize that time, I say, okay, cool. Well, let's compare our schedules. How long do you take to eat? How long do you take to shower? How long do you spend on your phone? How long do you sleep? How long do you do all this? And, you know, somebody that I compared to, I found that in my average day versus their average day, I cut the same amount of extra time into an additional 4 or 5 hours of my day.
100%.
I said, now times that by 7. If we have 5 hours, that's 35 hours extra a week. Now times that by 4. Now times that by years. I said, you know, how we get to the level of mastery is 10,000 hours. Yep. I said, I'm spending more time in my craft or doing the things that I'm supposed 100%. To do than the average person is.
I heard something crazy the other day. It was a guy, it was a keynote speaker at a 10X Crown. It was a clip of him talking to Elena Cardone. I don't know the guy's name. He said, the principle of 100. If you spend an extra 100 hours a year, which is 18 minutes a day, if you spend 18 minutes a day doing one thing, one specific thing, by the end of a year, you're better than 95% of people in that industry. That's crazy, bro.
Literally.
Think about it. If you just practice, and now I understand why I've gotten so far ahead in podcasting, because I literally, every day, I'm either editing, I'm working on inviting guests, trying to figure out like I'm always working on it. And I spend more than 20 minutes a day. So now I get it. Like all you got is just consistency, bro. Consistency is what separates you from everybody else.
Literally.
If you just stay consistent and keep at it and keep at it. What you ever seen a drop of water or it drops on a rock and it drops on a rock and it drops on a rock, and then you pass by that rock like a week later and the rock is just completely destroyed just from that drop of water that's constantly hitting it. Consistency beats sprinting.
It does.
You know what I mean? That ability to sprint and take off fast. Yeah, it's great, but it's not sustainable. Now, if you have a steady pace and 5 years at it, and 5 years later you're still at it, like people think this podcasting stuff, creating content, it's all exciting at first. Let me see you in a year. Now you know.
Are you willing to pivot? Are you willing to make the changes that you don't want to make? You know, even before we started, we were talking about some changes that I had to make.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, but literally I made them within 24 to 48 hours after learning. And it was like, okay, cool. I know my season 2 starts January 31st. We got to change this before the season even comes out. And we 100%. Did.
100%, bro. Me personally, I'm not attached to results, and I'm not attached to how I get to the destination. It's about getting there, right?
Yep.
So if I have to change my approach, I'll change my approach. And I think it's that attachment, right? That attachment to how things look. It's so unhealthy and so many people suffer from it. I was one of them. And I still have to catch myself sometimes because I'm like, no, man, I like this. I like the way I do it. And it's like, do you want to make money or do you want to be cool?
Facts. You know, facts. One of the things that I've been grateful for to live throughout my life was, you know, a quote that I live by, literally. I don't know how I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's carried me so far in business. And I used to say that to my friends from back home because, you know, growing up in New York culture, You know, if anybody knows anything about New York culture, like especially growing up, they get at you for the type of clothes that you wear. Like, oh, he got some fake shit on, or, you know, whatever, and making sure that you got to be up to date with your style and whatnot. And my mom didn't have the money for that. You know, my people didn't have the money for that. And so I had to now, as a kid, try to make money in the ways that I could, you know, shoveling, raking leaves, you know, doing whatever.
I heard shoveling's a big hustle up north.
Yeah, we was making some money, but early on, that's where I learned how to create systems with making money and helping other people make money. And that concept of, hey, I know I want those new kicks. I know I want those new jeans. I know I want those new whatever. I don't know how I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to get it done. And me living my life that way I've said it just the other day. I was like, man, I don't know how we finna do this, but we're going to do it though. We got to do it by this date. And it figures itself out.
Man, let me tell you. I can tell you a crazy story. Man, talking about, I didn't know how it was going to happen. I remember, man, I had no money. No money. And I had a big bill due. Like, it was Thursday. I was driving to the barbershop, right? I have no money. Like, the money I have in my pocket, the cash money I have in my pocket is to pay that bill on Tuesday, right? And it's Thursday. And I'm there like, man, I'm here like making life decisions between a haircut and paying bills. And I told myself, you know what? I'm going to get my haircut. That money's going to be there. I'm not worried about it. I'll figure it out. Bro, Saturday, I get a phone call and I book a meeting with a client. Sunday, they send me the money. Crazy, bro.
But
like,
you know what that is, though, too? That's the law of attraction.
100%.
You know, so having
100%.
that attractive mindset, you know, the value of frequency that we constantly put out into the universe, you know, because there's two different powers that are at hand. You know, you have the higher power that we can't see, and you have the universal power that we can see, because the universe is its own entity. And so the same way, you know, they say, oh, you know, ground, put your feet in the grass and, you know, live life in that kind of way and, you know, soak up some sun and, you know, visit the beach, calming things, you know, why we fall asleep to rain sounds, delta frequencies, all that type of stuff is because we're vibing at the natural frequency of universal frequency. And so when we connect ourselves in that kind of way, whatever we think, whether it's positive or negative, in turn does happen.
Yep. Yeah, our brain is like one big electromagnet. You know, whatever you put out, that magnetic wave that you put out there with your mind is exactly what it's gonna pull right back in. You know what I mean? I think of my brain as thoughts. I think you have to think of your thoughts as like physical things.
Have to.
Thoughts are things. If you've ever heard that saying, the thought you put out is a real thing that's gonna become something solid in this universe, in this world. So it all starts with the way you think. Like, you have to alter everything from inception. And what's inception? Everything. This chair, that microphone, that hat you got on, everything. I can point at anything in the physical world, and it started off as what? A thought, an idea. And until you train your mind to where the thought, you start everything with the thought, and the right thought is what you put out first, nothing else matters.
Absolutely.
When you're putting out the wrong thought, it's never gonna go the right way. That's like I get out of my house and I turn the wrong way. Instead of going to work, I gotta make a right and I make a left. No matter what, I'm heading in the wrong direction. No matter what, I'm never gonna end up where I want to go. That's what that thought is. That first turn when you come out of your house, you gotta make a right. That's the right way to go to work. That's the right way to go to work, to go to the beach, to go to the restaurant, to go meet up with your parents. You gotta go a certain direction to get to that destination. And that direction in your mind is thought. You have to take the first step with thought. If the thought is wrong, nothing else is going to work.
Absolutely. People, you know, it's often difficult, you know, because I grew up 7-day Adventist. And in growing up 7-day Adventist, you know, if anybody knows anything about that specific denomination, is super strict. And, you know, no tattoos, no earrings, no nothing, you know. You can't go out on Saturday, can't go out Friday night, like can't do anything in that kind of way, can't eat pork, can't do a lot of different things. And so growing up, I always questioned why for certain things and question, you know, the furtherness of that kind of conversation. And once I got into psychology, I was faced with two worlds now, because psychology definitely goes more to a science mental thing versus a religious mental thing, which is more emotional.
Right.
It's more belief based. And so a question came up is, who came first? Because people have to believe in God or a God. So
Right.
did the person create God, or did God create the people? If we have to believe in God. And so, coming from a religious background, and I'm Christian, that was like an interesting question for me, because it makes you think about how the mind works. And immediately after my psychology professor had this conversation, she went into, the brain doesn't only use 10%. A lot of people like saying that, or 8%, and we use a lot more than that. I don't know the actual percentage, but it's more than that. And people underestimate how crazy our brain works in creating things that
100%.
are existent physically and things that are not existent. And that goes into the supernatural, that goes into the different personalities, the subconscious, the super ego, the id, and why we understand things through certain symbolisms and all that kind of stuff. And so our mind literally causes the world to revolve, to go around.
It's a crazy concept once you think about it.
It's crazy, because you're stuck thinking about things, and then you can literally think yourself into certain situations. There's several people on this planet that have thought themselves into death.
Bro, that's hardcore.
Super hardcore.
For real. I mean, if you think about it, what keeps the world in balance? It's a magnetic field, the North and the South Pole. It's all frequencies. It's everything. Our hearts, they say that when people are big groups are together in the world and they pray, you see this big electric magnetic surge. And why? Because it's us. We have that same energy in our bodies, that magnetic electric pulse. So when people come together and you see them all in unison praying and like putting out that intention, you can literally see it. Like people, you've seen satellite images and stuff like that. You see like this spot of what is going on there, and it's the energy coming from that crowd of people. I wish, like, you have to be intentional, man. You have to be intentional.
Have you ever seen the show American Gods?
No.
Great show. You would definitely like it, because it goes into history in a different kind of perspective. People who are super, super religious might not like it, but I like to challenge the status quo. I'm always going to believe what I believe, but that doesn't mean that I can't listen to somebody else's belief structure.
Right.
Because then that lets me understand more about them, whether they're Buddhist, monk, anything, whatever they choose to be. Me understanding them as a human being, because moral compass and religious compass are two different compasses.
100%.
And as long as I can understand why somebody does the things the way they do, I can respect them more, and I can not judge them for the way that they think about certain things, because I understand, hey, this is how they grew up. Because if I had grown up in Southern Asia or whatever, I may not be a Christian.
Right.
I may have a different thing. And so a lot of the things that we get into as adults, were only because of how we were raised as a child.
Right. That brings into a good pivot. So in today's world is pretty crazy, right? I'm seeing a correlation between certain things where if you believe in a higher power, then you believe in consequences. There's a consequence to me doing certain things. If I do bad things, I'm going to have to answer for them eventually, if you believe in a higher power, right? Versus if you don't believe in a higher power, you don't believe in consequences. You think this is all for no reason. So you can do whatever you want, and you're not going to have to pay the price for it. So it's interesting that we brought up this conversation, because if you think about it, even believing in a higher power, it makes you operate differently for many reasons. But let's bring it to this. Morally, you have now like a moral obligation to act a certain way.
Absolutely.
Morally, you have an obligation to follow this creed, follow this set of principles when you believe in a higher power.
Absolutely. And that's why I can never be upset at anybody for choosing to follow that kind of structure, because most higher powers come with a sort of structure that would be more morally correct. than incorrect. You know, so whatever religion that they would go through or whatever, you know, moments that they would have in their life, somebody who follows something is able to be coached or able to be
Right.
taught.
Right. It's even people who don't really necessarily go into like, you know, traditional religious means, but just you have to believe in some sort of a higher power. You have to believe that we're here for a purpose, not that we're just here for no reason. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because if you don't believe in a higher power, if you don't believe in these certain kind of things, then it's like, why are we all here? Like this, there's no reason behind this. There's no plan. There's no design. It's all, you believe this is just kind of like all slapped together, you know?
Yeah, and then there's more interesting concepts. The thing to having a free mind, what they call it, or an open mind, is there's a dangerous side to it. And the dangerous side to having a free or open mind is you have more questions. And that's where the quote, curiosity killed the cat, came from. Because, you know, we're creatures of question. And in us questioning, well, why can't we do this? Or why should we do this? Or why is this there? Those three main questions in life lead us to the conversation of what's real,
Right.
what's not real. Illuminati, you know, aliens,
All that stuff, yeah.
UFOs, you know, some people stand by this stuff, but then we have the creation of folklore. We have what they taught us in school, Roman
Right.
history, Greek gods, you know, Norse mythology, all that type of stuff. So who's actually right or wrong? You know, no one really knows because it all comes from somebody else's perspective. And there's not a single person that's left on this planet that is one of the originals that can say, no, it's this way, and it got changed over time. It's like the phone cup method, where you have you make a little phone with the plastic
Right.
cups, and, you know, you tell a message. You don't know what you heard, but you're going to kind of try to piece it together and say, okay, cool, you know, this is what I got from it. And that this is what I got from it changes, of course, thousands of years later.
It's literally, I've done that before in different like workshops and stuff where the person whispers in one person's ear. It's a room full of like 100 people.
Yep.
And the speaker will come down from the stage and whisper something in somebody's ear. And then everybody will do it with the next person, the next person, the next person, the next person. And by the end of it, the last person, what they say has nothing to do with what the first person was told. And it's crazy. It's like, man, how does that change so much if everyone is literally just saying what they heard? They're not saying what they heard. They're saying what they think they heard.
Yeah. They're saying it from their perception level.
Bro.
Oh, well, I thought I heard this, or I thought this is what it was. And that's how people operate in natural life is we don't take often, and that's me included, you know, we often don't take time to think about that other person's perspective. And it could be the same thing. It could be something that we do all the time. It could be an activity, you know, finances, the way we say hi. You know, you might say hello. I might say hi. You might say hey. You might say konnichiwa. You know, you might say a lot of different things, but the inflection of your voice, the, you know, when you say it, how you say it, how loud you say it, how small you say it, they all determine how you feel in that moment, and that's going to produce a different thought in my head.
100%. Yeah, I can, and based off my own perspective, right? Like not even because I've been somewhere where I thought something happened a certain way, and then all of a sudden you ask somebody else that was there, and their perspective on it is totally different.
Yeah.
It's always that thing. There's always, like when the cops show up, there's always that person's version, versions, and the truth.
Yeah.
The truth, I've noticed, is always somewhere in the middle of what everybody is saying.
Literally.
It's never exactly how this guy said it exactly, unless you have it on camera. Like I'd be interested in running like a research study or something like that, right? Like where I have cameras and then I make something happen and then you interview everybody and you don't tell them there was cameras. And then I guarantee you one person's going to be like way skewed this way.
Yep.
The other person's going to be way skewed that way. And then you check the cameras and like microphones and stuff and it's like has nothing to do with anybody else. It's like something, a little bit of what this guy said, a little bit of what that guy said, and it's somewhere like in the middle.
And so there's actually a mental thing for that, and that comes in the form of illusions. And so the mind, when under a certain amount of pressure, creates real life illusions, and that's where technical hallucinations come from. That's how powerful our mind is. And so when we begin to hallucinate off of things like, I mean, I've never done it, but I read up on it, shrooms or,
all that stuff,
all that stuff. Basically, it turns into a conversation of what are we already thinking and what are we already processing. It's not the actual thing. The thing just enhances what we already have up here. So when we hallucinate or when we go through illusions or when you tell a child, after watching a scary movie and they start seeing things or whatever, it's because our mind is already in a state of mind.
Right.
And so that's the same thing with life. If we have a situation that's taxing or pressuring or they don't want to take the blame for something or, oh, wait, hold on. This is what I saw. Or this is what I saw. You sure you saw that? Or even those videos. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos where they were like, can you count how many times the ball was passed back and forth? And then people are so focused on the ball passing back
exactly
and forth.
yeah.
There's like a bear walking through the middle of the screen, and they were like, "Did you see the bear?"
What?
And people were like, "What bear?"
And then they play it again, and you're like, "Oh my God, how did I miss the bear?" That's crazy.
So our mind creates and takes away things that it's like Photoshop. That's exactly how they created Photoshop. Yep. The ability to remove things that we don't want there, and that comes from not only trauma, but it comes from protection as well.
A simple example: you ever been sitting somewhere working on something, and then, hey, I was calling you. What do you mean you were calling me? I didn't hear you. Mm-hmm. And they were like, Nelson. I'm so focused on, it's crazy. Or when you're on the phone and you're trying to talk on the phone and then someone's trying to talk to you and you hear nothing of what they told you. They're speaking to you clear as day, but you're so focused on the phone call that you just don't hear it.
Yeah.
I've never been amazed. I've always been so amazed at how the mind works and how when you focus or when you think a certain way, it just makes this shift to where things don't even exist around you.
They don't. It's that hyper-focused mentality, especially it's strong in people that want to get things done. Mm-hmm. People that are executors, because people that drift off, it happens in them too. But again, then there's that middle ground of the average human being where a lot of people may not even know what they want.
Right.
And so they might hear a little bit of this. They might hear a little bit of that. They clock in to clock out.
Clock in. Mm-hmm. That's the mentality nowadays. Everybody's just burning time.
Burning time.
You know what I've noticed? So we talked about how, I did time and all that on your podcast. I've noticed that everybody is in a prison of their own making. Mm. This is a crazy realization I had when I was in there. I'll never forget it. It's actually a part of my second book that I'm coming out with later this year. It was a journal entry, and I sat down and I wrote, I may be in a physical prison, but many people out there are in a financial prison. They're so broke, they have no money. So guess what? You can't live the life you want to live. Mm-hmm. Because in order to live the life you want to live, you need to have money to afford certain things. Some people are in a physical prison, like a body prison. They're so out of shape and they're so sick that it doesn't allow them to enjoy their own life.
Yep.
You're sick. You're always taking pills and going to the doctor and taking care of your sickness and all this stuff, which, by the way, most of the time illness is brought on your own, but I'm not even going to touch that subject. Then we can move on to other things. You're in a mental prison. Mm-hmm. Your mindset, your own mindset is your own undoing. Yep. Your own mindset is what's keeping you where you don't want to be in life. There's spiritual prisons where your spirit is not intact and spiritually you're not aligned. So spiritually you're just all over the place, not believing in anything, right?
Yeah.
Going back to that. There's so many in the relationships. Don't even get me started on that one.
That emotional prison is crazy.
Toxic relationships. That's a huge topic of conversation nowadays. Mm-hmm. People are all in prisons of their own making.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be a physical prison. It could be a financial prison. It could be a prison in your relationships, an emotional prison, a spiritual prison, a mental prison. We all create these prisons of our own making.
Literally.
And when I realized that, I was just like, man, wow.
Literally, like you one of the things that I teach, and this is why I feel like, I'm in an industry that is not often talked about, especially not in our communities at least, because when it comes to the realm of just psychology in general, there's not a lot of minorities that are in leading roles for psychology.
Right.
You have to ask yourself, why is that? And so you know, whether they're Latino or you know, black or, you know, Asian, whatever. There's a lot of individuals that don't choose to understand the mind at a deeper level. And so when I teach people in business, they'll be surprised because we barely touch on financial topics that well.
Right.
Most of the financial topics that we do touch on, they could find on, you know, Google or YouTube for the most part. Of course, there's deeper and advanced tactics, but for the most part, it's just general business structured things. But what makes the real change in their business, and I'll use one of my exes as an example, we didn't change anything in her business that, you know, yet. And literally in the span of 6 months, we added about like 50 to 80K overhead.
Wow.
And we just changed the emotional aspect, the mental aspect, and the physical aspect. What was actually being executed on the stuff that already existed. And so most people in these prisons, these emotional, mental, physical, financial prisons, they don't understand that there is 4 systems to mindset, which is that emotional, that mental, that physical, and those come before the financial prison. Because if you can't get past those 3, how can you reach number 4?
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, money is just a result. It's a physical result in the physical world of who you are internally. I always tell people, and they flip out when I tell them this. If you're a business owner, your business is a reflection of who you are.
100%.
It's a reflection of your own personality, of who you are as a person. If you're not making money, if there's no systems in place, if you're a disaster, it's just a reflection of who you are. How can I talk about this? Because I've been through that. I've been through super messy, unorganized, because I was messy and unorganized and undisciplined, and I didn't want to put in the work. So if you don't want to put in the work, if you don't want to be a certain way, if you don't want to be disciplined, if you're not healthy, all these things come out in your business.
I just made a clip of myself talking about it. I'm going to drop that clip for you guys today on my page just so you can hear it, because I was talking about it in one of the earlier businesses that failed. And somebody was like, oh, so, you know, you seem to always have been good at business. I was like, no, there were times where I was very bad.
Yeah.
And I said, but I was only bad because of the reflection of myself that I was at the time. And
100%.
so my business had no choice but to be just as bad.
Exactly. Yeah, man. I wish business owners out there, entrepreneurs, leaders, your business is only a reflection of yourself. So if you want your business to improve, you have to improve. All the things you don't want to be, you know, oh my God, I don't feel like organizing, or this spreadsheet and all this garbage. Guess what? That's the things you got to do. You got to become organized if you're not organized. You got to clean up if you don't want to clean up. You got to become sharp, learn, like have the knowledge. All these things that your business is lacking, it's only because you're lacking it.
And we can even take it a step further. You know, that leadership, if you tried to put that blame on your employees or your contractors, 9 times out of 10, it's actually how you led them.
100%.
Because they don't get a chance to come into your company if it's really your company without you. And so you letting them into your company, you've already accepted a certain standard. There'll be rare cases where you do have a great system, you do have a great product, service, whatever, and that person just doesn't execute. But it's, again, rare. And so 9 times out of 10, it's the leadership that's in place. How are they taught? How were they reprimanded? How are they advanced? What onboarding did they go through? How often do you have meetings? How often do you bring things up? Do you reward them? Do you celebrate their wins? You know, it goes into a lot of different categories, but people will be like, oh, this person doesn't do this, or this person does that, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Leadership's. So a concept I learned a long time ago is leadership is from the top down. Meaning, if you're lazy, if you're not on point, if you're not working, that's exactly what everybody's going to think is the standard at your company.
Yep.
If you're working your ass off, if you're setting the standard, if you're leading by example, if you're staying late, that doesn't give, like, people don't have the excuse of, well, I see you doing it, so it must be okay.
Literally.
It's actually the opposite. They're trying to, oh man, I can't be lazy. You know, oh my God, no. Rich isn't lazy. I can't do that. I can't do that around him. It's the opposite. So it's do what I do, not what I say. If you're leading by example, if you're doing it first, it's going to happen on its own. You have to find, in order to find people, like the ideal people you want around you, you just have to become that person.
Absolutely. And then that takes us to, the great debate of, as a leader, would you rather be feared or would you rather be loved? And I ask a lot of people when they come to do the coaching or consultations or mentorships, and a lot of their issues happen with their staff. I ask them that question, and I get different answers. And then they ask me, well, what do you do? And I say it's a little of both, honestly. There's fear and there's love, but there's love in being feared.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, there's love in being feared, because sometimes you have to understand that everybody responds differently, and that question is not meant to be black and white.
Right.
Some people lead by you leading, and some people lead by you loving. And so me doing both of these to people at the same time, there's different targets. How everybody deals with me or how everybody sees me, which is why I have split personalities as well. Mastermind Rich, the kind of conversation we're going to have with Mastermind Rich is going to be a more intellectual conversation. It's going to be a more mindset conversation, a more oriented. We can get deep. We can talk about the spiritual, the science, all that type of stuff. Moneybag Rich is going to be like, hey, we got to get things done. We got to make this money. We got to do finances. We got to allocate the time properly. We got to, whatever. And it's going to be more lifestyle oriented. But those are the main type of people that I interact with in my life. Those who want to know more and those who need to see more.
Right. 100%. I have those split personalities too. So there's a joke, there's an ongoing joke in in my circle of friends, they call me Montana, right? So Montana is, I heard a friend of mine say it the other day, and it applies to me too. I went in to prison as Nelson and I came out as Montana. I had to rebuild myself. I said, I ended up here because I acted unaccordingly, not of myself, and I never want to do that again. So who do I want to be? I want to be this person. I want to act like this. I want to have these things. So in order to do that, the person I am today is dead. That's it. And I created this guy right here. And this guy is who I am. This guy is 100% confident in what he wants in life, is a leader's leader, only surrounds himself with people who want the same things that he does, or at least are heading in a certain direction in life, is inspiring, inspires others to do their best, to go after what they want in life. So it's funny you talk about alter egos, because that's literally what I did. I had to recreate myself and reinvent myself. Like I rebirth, talking about rise from the ashes, destroy that old me, and become a brand new person that I could be proud of.
Absolutely. And that being able to just do that mentally, I don't think people really understand how much that matters to just your overall security, mental security. And it matters because you're trying to change without changing drastically. And in invoking change, you have to change mental. And in changing mental, you have to compartmentalize a lot of the thoughts that you have, a lot of the proximity that you have, a lot of the, execution that you have. And so if you still like something, but you still want something else, the easiest way to do that, and for other people to understand that, is they need to understand who they're dealing with, because, my people barely know my real name. You met me with my real name, but that was Darian, and most people that meet me now, it's Rich. And so when they meet Rich, they're meeting an extrovert. Darian is super introvert. If anybody that truly knows me, I love anime. I will not leave my house. I am a gamer at core, which requires me to not leave my house. I am super introverted. I don't like having conversations with people. I don't like having all of this, but because I did understand the psychology behind things, I had to create a personality that did like that. Somebody that was willing to come outside, that was willing to interact with people, that was willing to grow, because if not, I would be doing something that Darian just didn't like.
Right.
And so making Rich has been, because I'll tell people, and literally I have two different phones. Hey, one phone, Darian only has conversations on that. The other phone, Rich has conversations on. And it's rare that mixes, because Darian needs to recharge often. His social battery is not that high. But Rich's social battery is, sure, let's go. Let's get outside. Let's talk to this person. You got to hit up random people, cold call, 100 leads, whatever. And Darian creates that balance of relax. Just chill. It's okay. You don't have to do 100 leads today. You don't have to do this today. You know, and having that balance, you know, everything comes back to balance. When you think of mental things, just like you said, the North Pole, South Pole, you know, even that concept was derived off of older concepts, which I'm not going to get deep into that, but yin and yang, you know, light and dark. And so having the light and dark, if we think about cardinal systems, north, south, east, west, everything always has an opposite. Everything always has something, you know, as above, so is below. That's why they compare space and the ocean together. You know, all the like, we can get deep into this, but everything always has a counterpart. And people think that they themselves should not have that. And I'm like, you absolutely should. Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, you know, like these are just natural things that help you separate the life that you're trying to live.
100%. Yeah, it makes me think of, have you heard of the principle of hermetics? Mm-hmm. That's what that, yeah. So as above, so below, as within, so without.
Yep.
Everything is a reflection of itself. Literally. You know, like a computer, you could see, I see the reflection of life in everything. Like, if you look at a cell, it kind of looks like the human body. If you look at the human body, it kind of looks like the universe. Mm-hmm. You can literally make that comparison. If you look at how a computer works, like a motherboard, there's a CPU, that's the brain, and then there's a heart, there's a lung. I see it everywhere. You know,
everywhere.
You know, everything in plants, in life, you know, animals. It's crazy how everything is a reflection of itself. Like the universe itself, everything is interconnected, and what creates like that chaos, or what creates that chaotic energy, that negative opposite, is when there's separateness, the illusion. You want to create the illusion of separateness, that you and I are separate, or that everything in here is separate, when in reality it's all one.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. And that's when you bring on the perspective of, okay, so there's no I hurt him or he hurts me. It's I'm hurting me. I'm always hurting me. Because if I hurt other people, or if I destroy something else, I'm destroying a part of me, because it's all one. Bro,
we literally see it every day, and people also underestimate how often we see it. We see it with our pets. You know, scientists, psychologists, veterinarians always say, it's an actual fact, you can go look it up, your dog cannot understand what you're saying. But then we have conversations. We tell our dog, sit, come, go outside, don't do that, come here, you know, run around, give me your hand, give me your paw. How are they understanding us then? Because we're connected. You know, the same way an animal senses fear. An animal might sense, you know, in the wild, that you may want to be there to help it, or you may want to be there to hurt it.
Right.
You know, these are senses of connections. How can we communicate with something that doesn't understand our language? Right. It can't be verbal. And so it has to be some other form of connection, which is definitely mental. It's and emotional.
Man. It's been almost an hour. That's crazy.
Facts.
Time flies.
It does.
We got into some good stuff. That was really good.
Absolutely.
Dope, man. All right. So, Rich, I always like wrapping up the podcast the same way. So I typically ask 3 questions. So question number 1, what inspires you?
What inspires me is change. You know, change inspires me because it gives us the ability to think differently. You know, change is what brought on cars from horses, you know, from carriages, which is what brought on planes, which is what brought on railroad systems, and all of that type of stuff. The ability to want to change and advance in life. Change is the one constant in life. The only thing. Literally. Because everything else is temporary. Whether you're talking about our physical body, whether you're talking about a physical object in the universe, whether you're talking about, I mean, the sun rises and sets every day. The moon comes and goes every night. The stars are only out at night. You only see clouds out in the blue sky during the day. Yep. Everything you can think of is temporary, except one thing, change. Change is the only constant in life. And I find it so funny how there's the universal law that change is the only constant in life, yet no one likes change. Yet if it's the one thing you accept, that change is inevitable, your life takes on a whole different, literally. That's insane to think about. People are so resistant to change, yet it's the only thing that's going to happen no matter what. Absolutely. Dude, I remember the day, I go back to, like, when I tell you about these ideas and these concepts, I go back to the moment I realized them. And I was like,
Wow, like everything changes no matter what,
Everything.
no matter how much you fight it.
Absolutely.
The more you fight it, the more painful it is.
Absolutely. We can't avoid it.
Once-
It's going to happen whether we trigger it or something else does.
And if you just accept, oh, it's gonna change. There's nothing I can do about it. And better yet, once you embrace change, that's when life becomes fun. You know what I
And
mean?
there's levels to change. You know, something can change. You know, I just moved my phone like right here. That's a change that happened in real time. But another change could be, you know, we're sitting here and we just don't know that it's going to happen. You know, somebody could throw a rock through the window. That changes a lot of things, you
Right.
know, whatever. And it gets gradual. There's positive, there's negative changes, but change itself is just unpredictable in nature, but it's also constant.
100%. Change, man. Change is constant. Hell of a concept. I gotta write a book about that. Question number 2. What's next for Rich?
What's next for me is just to continue to grow, man. Like, you know, there's always a what's next, you know, and so even when I have the accolades of getting to where I might want to go, you know, one of my biggest goals that I have physically written down is I want to do Forbes 40 under 40, and being able to do that, then I have to look beyond that, you know. Whenever somebody gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, or whenever somebody does this or does that, or LeBron being called the best player of the NBA right now, or anything that you want to think of, there's still more to do. And so, you know, my next is forever. You know, that change is always part of my next. And so how can I influence until I'm no longer here?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when people look at someone who's great at something. So, for example, let's use LeBron or Michael Jordan or whoever. And no matter, like, why are they still doing that? You know? What do you mean, why are they still doing that? Because there's more to do.
Yeah, literally.
This mentality that the common person has of, once I make it, I'm going to sit on the beach and sip Mai Tais until the day I die.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever. You're a certain kind of person if you got to where you wanted to get to. You're only going to want to keep going.
Absolutely.
That mentality, that Mai Tai, sit on the beach and sip Mai Tais mentality is what keeps you where you are. And because you have that mentality, that's why you are where you are. And because LeBron and Michael Jordan keep going, that's why they're the best of all time.
And goals become enhanced because, you know, think about yourself when you were a kid and somebody asked you, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? For the people that did make that come true in their lives, what also added to that picture? You know, I used to tell myself, and that's the power of small thinking. It works against you negatively because I told myself when I first got into business, I was like, man, I'll just be happy and I'll live my life if I can make 6 figures a year. Till I made 6 figures a year. And I realized I didn't ask for enough because in me making 6 figures a year, I also, to make that process happen, had to have 7 or 8 contractors. And so that 6 figures wasn't even mine. So I made what I wanted, but then now I had to level up what I made what I wanted because it turned into a conversation of, okay, well, that's actually not enough. That's actually something that I need to advance, that I need to go further with. And so we don't know when these greats hit the goals that they might want to hit, what other goals are they setting?
And there's always a mountain to climb, right? Even if you have to, like, keep staying on the example of an athlete, there comes a time where your physical body just doesn't perform anymore.
Yep.
But there's new mountains to climb. Like Kobe retired and then he went on to make films.
Yep.
Michael Jordan's an owner of a team. And he's still got Jordan shoes. There's still a new mountain to climb. And that's what I love about people who achieve and are in that realm of being the best, because they were the best in this and their time is done here, but they move on to something else. And now they're the best at that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's that pivot, that being able to shift and show that people can be versatile. I love that.
Absolutely.
So final question, my friend. How do you want to be remembered when you're no longer here?
I want to be remembered by proximity, you know, who I had around me. I don't necessarily want to be remembered for me, but the people that I was able to bring around me to influence, you know, everyone else. And so that's one of my main reasons in getting into business was I didn't have somebody like me reach out to me when I was at a point in my life where I needed that. The only people that reached out to me was the Marine Corps, and I took it. And, you know, I'm grateful for it. I learned a lot of lessons in the military. I learned a lot of things in the military. But what I always think to myself, and I know it's, you know, a fact, true, if somebody who was a business person had reached out to me, I'd have took that as well. So just trying to create proximity of like-minded individuals that understand that we have to give back to other people around us. You know, there's not, you know, often where I do charge people and I don't charge people. You know, it's based off of the connection that we have, the relationship that we have. There'll be times where some people come on the podcast for free. Some people pay to come on the podcast. But again, it's proximity. So I want to be known for who was able to come around me, because even when I die, not everybody's allowed to my funeral. And for the people that are constantly around me, I'm going to make sure that they stand on that, because we won't have that confusion of, oh, well, we were so close to Rich. No, you weren't. You know, no, you won't. You know, and that stands for family. That stands for everybody. And so I have that level of proximity now that I have the discipline that I haven't even talked to my mom since September 17th, 2018, because that's the environment that I created, that nothing that isn't for me will be able to have access to me. So proximity.
That reminds me of something I read a long time ago. It said there's about half of the people that show up to your funeral are going to decide whether or not to go based on the weather that day. It's crazy stuff. Really, really crazy stuff. And when I found that out, I was like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about people's opinions anymore.
Yeah.
I'm only going to be around the people that I know for a fact care about what I'm about and care about who I am as a person and are in alignment with who I want to be. You know what I mean? So, Rich, thank you so much for coming through, man.
Thank you.
How can people connect with you?
So if you want to connect with me, you want to connect with the business, the podcast, you can find all hubs, all links, all everything at Real Money Bag Rich on Instagram or any other platform, but mainly on Instagram and YouTube. Attractive Mindset Podcast. We have great high-level conversations, and we actually have an episode with Montana himself. And listen, y'all want to tune in, tap in, because that was a high-level conversation as well.
For sure. Thank you for coming through, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you for the invite.
Of course, man. Alrighty, guys. Another episode of Montana Method Podcast. Your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., signing out. Subscribe. Comment below. Let me know who else you want me to feature. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next one. Say goodnight to the bad guy.
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.